So what do I actually want to knit in 2022? So what do I actually want to knit in 2023? Hello, welcome to EB Knits. My name is Emily. I'm a knitter and making enthusiast based in Orlando, Florida, and this channel is my outlet to share all things handmade, specifically knitting. And today I want to share with you all my 2023 knitting and making goals for the year. Now, I'm not a major resolution person. I do have some rough, loose, goals that I'd like to attain, or I'd like to at least kind of follow as much as possible throughout the year. I feel like I learned a lot about myself, about my knitting, and where I'm at in my life and space right now in 2022. So a lot of that is going to carry over into my goals for 2023. So last year, my biggest goal was to reduce my yarn stash, to buy less yarn, and I feel like I accomplished that. And I'd like to carry that over into 2023. I'm gonna have this caveat, this is not for everyone. For me personally, I feel the least overwhelmed and like I'm getting some things off my plate when I have less yarn. Still have to do my end of year count for December of 2022, but I think it's gonna be only somewhere around 60 or maybe a little less, we'll see. But I'm guessing it's 50 to 60 yarn skeins. So I still have some work to do. I'd like to get the number to 20 or below, and that's where I feel like I'd be comfortable sitting at for a yarn stash. That allows me to have 2 or 3 sweater quantities of yarn, plus like some few random skeins for hats or maybe socks or those small projects, and then just extra skeins that I didn't use in a project or are just leftovers. So that is going to be my number one guideline. That's what I should call it, a guideline throughout 2023, is limiting the amount of yarn I buy. If I'm buying it for a project that I have in mind that I'm actually going to be able to make in a reasonable manner. Because I have all these projects I want to make, but I only have so much time. Otherwise, just choosing projects, working down my Ravelry queue, working down the yarn I have in my stash. If I do find new patterns I want to knit, hopefully going to just shop my stash first, making some more scrappy projects. I really enjoyed those in 2022, putting all of the different unexpected colorways together that I didn't think would work, but then turns out they did. They looked really high end, like just all the different colors blended really well together. Guideline number 1 for this year. Number 2 is making realistic projects. I've already applied for a test minute that is not going to go along this guideline. However, hopefully some future projects will. So in 2022, I went back to school and I realized I don't have the time to dedicate to knitting as much as I want to. So I have to make simple projects. Maybe reading my textbook, for example, while knitting. And that's gonna carry over to all of 2023 as well. I can't have very focus heavy, concentration heavy projects, although I want to. I hope that I can incorporate some better time management skills this year into my schedule so I can find time, even if it's just an hour or 2 a week, to designate it to a more complicated project. And it'll of course come along very, very slowly, but I could maybe make a complicated project or 2 or even 3 this year. That would be really great, like 1 a season or something. And then the rest of my projects are all some relatively simple stockinette projects, because I still want to test my brain and advance my skills, even though I don't have as much time to devote to that. So that is one of my goals, guidelines, and hopes, is to stick with realistic projects that fit my schedule. Secondly is making realistic tops in terms of my weather. So I still live in Orlando, Florida. It's still hot here almost every month of the year. For myself, I want to be making short sleeve tops and even more tank tops. In the summertime, I wear exclusively tank tops. It's the spring and fall where I can kind of be okay with wearing short sleeves. So I'll get the most use, I think, out of tanks or sleeveless tops. So that's the direction I want to go garment-wise this year. And again, it's going to be a lot of stockinette projects, not a lot of complex, lacy, cable, texture projects as much as I want to. I do want to try knitting socks this year. That I think is going to be my biggest knitting advancement, or it's my biggest hope at least. I can try some different heels, but stockinette socks potentially will be hopefully my newest venture of 2023 in terms of my knitting career. So I've never knit socks. I do have some sock yarn though. I grabbed some last year. So I would love to dive into learning how to knit socks, just simple like magic loop or try 9-inch circulars, and just see what works for me that could fit the bill of that stockinette project I'm looking for. And finally, color scheme. So I love bright colors, kind of evidenced here. I really like this top. I like how it's neutral with the pops of color, but for me this is a bit of a more casual top. I have a lot of colorful, bright garments and they seem more casual. I'm looking for a little bit of more elegance in my wardrobe this year, I think. I want to look a little bit more put together. And so I want to knit with those bright colors still, but I also want to try some more tops with that like that elegance. I'm looking for basically just a step above the casual. So some more muted color tones, I think, in between some more brighter colored projects is the color scheme I'm going to be interested in this year to create a more cohesive palette and something where I'm trying to define my style. And so those are the pieces and different elements I'm going to be factoring in when I think about what I want to knit this year. I do have a full Ravelry queue. I want to stick with that. I think like the first 5 products in my Ravelry queue I have yarn for, so I want to make those first ideally so that I can get the yarn out of my stash, the products out of my queue, and I'm sure there'll be many more patterns this year that I fall in love with and want to make as well. A few patterns off the top of my head that are in my queue are the ranunculus, which I made before but I want to make again, the Cozy Celtic Raglan, which is a sweater by Knititude, but I want that to one day be my Christmas sweater. I've had it in my plans for years and just have not made it yet. The Summer Sorrel by Wool and Pine, the Confetti Crop, which is also by Knititude, and I want to start using my hand spun. I want to knit a project with my hand spun eventually, so we'll see if I can get there. I just have a drop spindle. I don't have a wheel. Eventually, I would love to get a spinning wheel, but that is on the horizon for next year or futures knitting hopes and goals and plans. And finally, in terms of acquisitions this year, so I don't want to be purchasing much yarn, while in the future I do want to try more yarn. Different breeds of sheep, different types of animals, different cellulose fibers, different weights. I want to experiment with all that, but right now I want to knit what's in my stash. So I'm going to put the trying different yarns on pause, at least for a little while. However, I'm not limiting myself to 0 acquisitions this year. In 2022, I was fortunate enough to gain a few knitting tools. So it was really for my birthday. I got some of those barber cords. I got some really cute stitch markers this year for the first time, more than just simple plastic rings. So I kind of want to expand that way in terms of my knitting tools, notions, and accessories. Maybe a couple of project bags. When I look at the few project bags I have now, they regularly bring me joy and I love the way they look. So obviously being selective, I don't want to go overboard, but finding some cute project bags to put more of my projects in, to continue to expand my stitch marker collection, I would really enjoy, and work with whatever new, knitting tools come out to enhance my knitting toolkit. So that's where I want to go in terms of acquisitions. Stay away from the yarn side of it so much and kind of delve into the notion area. So, because that's always something I've kind of avoided. I've always said, hey, I can find affordable options or really easily accessible options, and that's totally great. But at this point, I think, I really like looking at those pretty stitch markers and the pretty project bags and that kind of thing. So if it brings me joy, I want to expand upon that this year. So those are my knitting guidelines for 2023. I know that it wasn't expansive and I wish I had so much more time to devote to knitting where I could do a lot of color work or lace work or cable knitting. Like, I want to expand my skills. I want to become a more advanced knitter. But at this point, I think these are realistic guidelines and goals that I can attain, and that's where I want to stay right now, is obtainable, realistic options for myself. Thank you so much for watching. Have a happy and healthy 2023, and until I see you again, happy making, my friends!